All right, get the coffee brewing because Lurch is on his way over. Because today we're going to install a set of Tusk Pannier racks and panniers on a Kawasaki KLR. It happens to be a 2018. It should be the same for all years. And one of these days they're going to make panniers. I think I said that right. Let's call them saddlebags. I'm probably going to do that today. But they're going to make them. They're actually going to engineer them to like fit the contour of the bike coming from a Harley background. They just make these big black metal boxes, and that's pretty much all you can get. Very functional, but like no thought went into like how they contour the bike or anything. But nonetheless, that's what we have to deal with. That's what we're going to put on. They come in black or silver, and there are two different sizes. There is a larger size. I would say just go with the bigger size. If you're going to put them on, go big or go home, right? And if you appreciate this video, you want to support us, I will put links in the description below. You'll either be able to get these Tusk Pannier racks and boxes in our law-abiding biker store. If not, I'll have a link to where you can get them. Either way, it helps support us and keep the lights on here. And with that said, let's get the toolbox open, get the old metric tools out, dust them off for Lurch. You ready to wrench on a metric?
Do we have metric tools?
The
f***'s that?
Coffee cup.
What the hell is this? Are you shitting me?
No, if you're gonna farkle on a bike, you gotta have the right mug.
What the hell's, there's like a mouse inside of it. This is...
All right, and with an 8mm nut driver, we're gonna remove the left side panel. There's a bolt in the back and in the front. We'll do this on both sides. On each side of the seat is a 10mm. He's using a nut driver there, so we can get the seat off. And with both bolts removed there, you can slide that seat off. All right, and so now we're just gonna move up underneath the rear of the bike to remove the rear part of this fender. All right, and up underneath this fender, you'll see there's just 4 bolts, and he's using a 10mm nut driver to remove the 4 bolts. And just moving up to the top ones there, those are the last 2. And with that last one removed, he can go ahead and drop that fender piece, and he can just let it hang there. All right, and underneath the seat on the left side here is a gray plug. That's your right signal plug, and we're gonna have to fish this out, so he's just gonna unplug it, and it's just a push-pull. Push on at the tab and then pull, and then we'll route this and pull it back through the rear fender here. All right, and up underneath here are 2 stock loops, plastic loops, wire guides basically, and he's just gonna pull that signal wire through both of those since we have unplugged it. And he's continuing to fish that signal wire out of there. All right, now he's on the right side of the bike here, and he can just pull that signal wire the rest of the way out, up underneath the seat area here. Okay, with that signal wire free now, he's just gonna lay it in there in a position so the seat won't pinch it, and he's gonna plug it back in. And basically that's just giving us the extra slack we need for the signal relocation, which we'll do in a bit. All right, and he's going back up with that rear fender piece. And just remember it's got the 4 bolts there, and just securing the 2 lower ones there, and that's a 10mm nut driver that he's using. And we've got our rear fender reinstalled. Next, we're going to remove the rear luggage rack, and this is a 5mm hex head that he's using. And of course, just the 2 on top there. All right, and on the front of the luggage rack on both sides, 8mm hex head, and he's going to remove both those bolts. All right, and with all the bolts removed, he can go ahead and take that rear rack, and it's got wires, of course. He's just going to rock that forward and just rest it. All right, and on this rear luggage rack, there's wires there, and you can see there's just some loops that guide the wires, 2 on each side, and we're just going to take those off is what he's doing. And there you go, you can see we have more play on that wire now. We'll do that to both sides. And now for both sides, we're going to remove the signals because we're going to have to relocate that. That's a 10mm box end wrench and a 5mm hex head on the other side. And of course, there's 2 bolts on each side to get these signals removed. And with that bolt removed, you can remove the signals there. And of course, we'll move over and do that to this side too. Next, we're going to remove the stock helmet lock here, 5mm hex head, 2 bolts on the back side there. And we'll put that in a relocation spot a little bit later. All right, and now he can go ahead and get that luggage rack out of our way. And he's got the left side signal in his hand there, and we're going to go ahead and clip that wire about 2 inches from where it comes out of the fender there. And he's going to strip both wires back just a little bit, of course on both ends. All right, and the kit comes with butt connectors, and he's just going to get a butt connector started on each end. And of course he got the butt connector started on the signal wires, and now he's going to do the butt connectors where the wires come out of the bike here on the left side. And with that, we're ready to put our extension in. So our kit here came with random colored wires, yellow and red. Of course, those do not correspond to the colors of wires on the KLR, which are black and green and yellow. But at the end of the day, as long as you, it's just an extension in between. So as long as you keep them the same, and I think he decided that he's going to go red to yellow and green on the bike. And then we will go yellow to black on the bike. As long as you keep those the same on both ends, you'll be fine. Like I say, it's just an extension. All right, and just finishing up there and crimping the other one down there. And then we'll do that on the signal side. Okay, and he just moved back to the signal side, and he'll do the same thing, of course, making sure those color-coded wires are the same on both sides. And he'll crimp those down. And when you're done with the butt connectors, just make sure you go back with electrical tape and get it all sealed up to protect it from the elements. At this point, you can go ahead and put your luggage rack back on and set it in place. And for now, we're only going to go in with the 2 top bolts just to secure it in place. 5mm hex head is what he's using, and we won't actually tighten them down all the way. And before we go any further, he's going to go ahead and install the left side panel here. And the reason is this has to be on before we actually put the pannier racks on. The right side is actually designed to be taken off with the racks on so that you can access the air filter. And with the panel in place, you can just take and install his 2 bolts and their 8mm nut driver there. All right, and to continue our project, we're going to have to remove the stock rubber grommets and steel bolt channels out of the luggage rack here. And the way you do that is you can just push them out. He's going to push with the screwdriver. And again, they're just 2 bolt channels there. All right, and he's just pushing out the other one there. And now you can just get a screwdriver in there and you can really pry and get this rubber grommet out of there. And of course, we'll do this on both sides. And with a 6mm hex head, he's just going to remove the top bolt on each side from the passenger foot peg. Now we can go ahead and put our pannier racks in place. And the longer bolt is an 8x80. It goes in the top, of course, where the bolt for the luggage rack used to go. And then you can move down, and where we took the passenger foot peg bolt out, we're going to use the 8x35 bolt that comes in the kit and secure the front. And we're just going to finger tighten all these for now. And of course, your kit comes with all this hardware, but we're going to put the signal relocation kit in place here. And you'll see it comes with a little plate with welded nuts on it. And that's going to go in the back. Secure that in place. And then over the top, his signal relocation bar. And then he's going to go in with the bolts. Your kit comes with different size bolts. We're going to use the 30mm bolts for this application. And he's just getting through and getting those fingers started. And the next step is to just relocate the signals to their new location. And we're just using the stock hardware that originally mounted the signals. And now that he's got his signals relocated, he's going to go ahead and tighten them down to the bracket. That's a 5mm hex head and a 10mm box end wrench on the back. Next, we're going to mount the helmet lock to the rear support bar. He's just putting a little medium strength Loctite on these bolts. And he'll just get those started. And he'll snug those down with his 5mm hex head. All right, now he can put his rear support bar in place and line it up. And the kit comes with the bolts, which are 6x20mm. He'll put those through. And then on the back side of each of those, he'll put the lock nut that came with them. So now we're going to start the tightening sequence, and with a 12mm socket, he's going to work first on the top pannier rack bolt. He'll get that snug down. And then with the same 12mm socket, he can move down to the lower pannier rack bolt and tighten that down. Next, he's going to tighten down with a 10mm socket his signal relocation bolts. And he's going to finish off by tightening the rear support bracket bolts. And it's a 10mm box end on the back and a 10mm socket on the front. And next, we're just going to secure and tie down the actual signal wires. And that's kind of up to you on how you want to do that. Just make sure they're up and out of the way. And just securing the right side signal wire, and you can actually pull much of that back through under the seat. And just be careful and secure it so that there's no pinch points when you put the seat on. And he's just going to use one zip tie there. All right, so next we're going to put the pannier plate in the pannier rack and get it latched into place there. And you can see how it's kind of loose there. We're actually going to put a zip tie on it, so when we're marking this, it's not wiggling around on us, and we make sure it's very accurate. So he'll just secure that down. And then he'll go up with the pannier. And really this is up to you on how you want to line it up and how far forward and how far back and the angle you want it. But just make sure if you're going to be carrying a passenger that you get a passenger on there on the pegs, make sure they have enough foot room But again, this is kind of completely up to you on how you want to do this. For the next step in this project, the easiest way to do this is have two people. One person can actually hold the pannier up in place on the pannier plate in the position they want, while the other person from the back side marks each hole with a Sharpie marker. Next, you'll want to get a 3/8 or 11/32 drill bit. And if you have a punch, you can punch the holes where you marked, or if you have the tip of your bit, you can just hit the drill once and kind of mark it down there. That'll keep the drill bit from walking. And you're just going to go ahead and drill his corner hole first and drill all the way through the box here. There's one. And before we drill any other holes, he's going to go ahead and put his pannier plate on here, because we'll want to line up the first one and get it in place before we drill another one. So at this point, we just have one hole drilled, and for the pannier plate, he's just going to put one bolt through to get it in place and put a nut on the backside. So something worth noting is the instructions say you can use an 11/32 or 3/8 bit. And what we're finding is that the 3/8 bit is a little bit big, and it's actually going to drill the pannier plate out. So we're going to step down to a 5/16 drill bit, and it seems that that will work and not drill out the actual plate, and we should have plenty of clearance for our bolts. So that's what he's using. All right, and you can see we're doing the corner bolts first, and that's really because we want to get everything lined up before we drill any others. We'll kind of drill as we go here. Okay, and he's got the panniers lined up and back to back, and he's just going to use those holes he drilled already and mark the other ones so they're sit exactly the same on the bike. So now we've got all our holes drilled. We're going to start bolting the actual rack to the pannier, and those are 25mm bolts. You've got different bolts in your kit. The 4 lower holes here are the 25mm, and you can see you put a washer and they go from the inside out, and that washer goes on the inside, and then he'll put that nut on the outside there, and he'll start getting all these bottom 4 fingers started. And he's just finishing up with his last bottom bolt there, and of course you could use a little medium strength Loctite on these if you like. So your top 3 bolts are 20mm in length, and they're going to go from the outside in. You'll also see he has that support bracket that goes on the inside of the pannier. And you can see he's just lining everything up and putting that nut on the inside of the bag. So after you lightly tighten down your pannier plate to the box, you want to put it in the pannier rack. And they give you spacers. And the reason is because our box is fitting very tight, and it's actually hitting, the pannier rack is hitting the box before it can actually latch in. And therefore, we're going to go ahead and take it off and add spacers all the way around. All right, and you can see we've added all our spacers for this particular application, and he's just finishing tightening each one down. That's a 5mm hex with a 13mm socket on the lock nut sides there. And we'll get it all secured down, and it seems to be properly spaced now when we put it on the rack, and it latches in just fine. All right, so your kit comes with 2 saddlebag safety bolts, 1 for each side. This will keep it so that your saddlebag can't get stolen, and or if your latch fails, it will stay mounted to the pannier rack. And your kit will come with a marking bolt, and you can go ahead and just thread that in. And then with a hammer, you can just strike the inside of the bag, which is going to go back against that marking bolt and let us know where to drill. And you can see that left a mark for us on the back side of the bag. All right, and with a 3/8 drill bit, he's just going to drill that hole that's marked now. All right, of course we took our marking bolt out of there, and he's just putting the pannier up in place there. And now he can thread the safety bolt into that hole. Now we're going to go ahead and mount the latches and locks to the panniers themselves. And of course your kit comes with all this hardware. And first is the backing plate, and all your bolts are the same length, so that makes it easy. And you've got washers and nuts. And so the bolt goes from the outside to the in. Inside goes washer first, and then your acorn nut. So he's going to get the 2 bottom lower ones started right now. Next, you just want to unlock and open the mechanism there. All right, and one thing before you start installing the latch and lock system is make sure that the buckle is not underneath and that it's sitting over the front. And once you have that open, there's just 4 bolts, of course. They go through from the outside to the inside of the box, and that'll line up with your top 4 holes. And you just got a second bolt lined up there, and he'll finish off with the last 2. All right, and with a Phillips screwdriver and an 8mm socket on the acorn nut on the inside, he's just tightening down all this hardware. And with those installed now, he can go ahead and, of course, latch his lid onto the pannier. And he's just securing the seat back down, just the bolt on each side. And back in with the front and rear bolt on that side panel. And to finish the system off, we got these nice Tusk Pannier bags. They come in duals, so they're smaller, but you can fit 2 of them in each. Again, these are the larger of the panniers. They do come in a smaller size. And then to finish it off, we went ahead and put a Tusk carry strap on the lids. Links will be in the description below. Lurch, how does it feel to farkle on a bike?
I feel special to farkle. I haven't farkled in a long time. I've been thinking, man, I wish I could farkle.
Are we going to call it farkle, or are we going to stick to wrenching on a bike since we come from Harleys?
It's wrenching on a bike. I'm not farkling anything. That's what happens when you farkle.